What's up, guys? Going to go live on this topic here about Andrew Tate's completely absurd belief in Islam and why he, for some reason, supports Islam. Completely absurd. We'll get into it here in just a moment. Hope and pray everybody is well today. And this is a strange trend that we're seeing lately is these people who, these kind of like non-woke influencers turning to Islam and thinking that Islam is like cool or based or amazing or something. And it's completely, absolutely absurd in every single way. And we'll completely get into that here in just a moment. Nice to see you guys in the chat. Hope you have a blessed new year. And we will get into it here shortly. Hope and pray again you all are well. Just making sure everything has gone live and that we are good. I think all is good, guys, so we will get into it here. All right. So we'll look at this interview with Andrew Tate. Most people, I'm sure, are aware who Andrew Tate is. He's like this non-woke, kind of like standing up for men type of figure that we're seeing like become more popularized. And, you know, sometimes he says things I agree with, and we'll get into kind of all of that in relation to this. But what we're going to mainly look at is the fact that he and many other people, such as Sneeko is another one of these non-woke influencer people, and they're turning to Islam as if Islam is some good thing, as if Islam is cool, or that it's in any way right in any way, and it's just not at all. And we'll completely get into that. So before we look into this interview here, well, I guess we can just listen to the first thing that he has to say in relation. So this is on the George Janko podcast. He had Andrew Tate on and they talked. George Janko's a Christian. Again, Andrew Tate is Muslim, and so or he follows Islam supposedly, and so we'll see what he has to say here. So I just want to make sure something real quick. Okay. All right. So this first clip that we will get into, here we go. This is at 1 minute, 11 and 35 seconds.
It's the fastest growing. Yeah. I think if you were to look at the insanity of the West, I think Islam opposes it hardest in regards to the pure insanity that is being inflicted upon and bestowed upon children in the West. I think Islam...
I want to say something, a compliment for them.
So this is a terrible reason for believing in a religion. So he says that he follows Islam because Islam opposes the woke things going on in the world. That has nothing to do with if Islam is real, if God is real, which God is real, but because one group of people fight against the woke belief systems going on in the world harder than anyone else. I mean, under this type of ideology, this would be like if Hitler came to power being like, well, I support Hitler because he opposes woke stuff more than anyone else. This is a terrible, terrible reasoning to be following that. And he kind of gets into this more and more, and this is the reason. That's a terrible reason why you believe in God. And he kind of says this more again. So again, we're not looking at who the truth is or what the real God is here. We're looking at who opposes what we're seeing in the world that we disagree with. That's a terrible reason to follow whatever, to pick your religion.
Of course, this just came from my mind. I said, well, maybe you see a religion how you see yourself. Like, I see myself as somebody who is feared, nobody would want to mock. I see myself as somebody with strict standards and discipline. I see myself as somebody who stands up for what he believes in and doesn't care if he's assaulted and attacked for it. Maybe that's why it was so appealing to me. And then I'd sit and I'd study it and I'd read and I'd realize how close it actually is to Christianity. We believe in so many of the same things.
Okay, so I have to speed it up, but that's for, you know, certain reasons. But so there he stands on that whole thing again, that's what he believes in because they stand against the woke things going on in the world. Again, no reason for the truth. If we look at what John 14:6 says, Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Not anything on no one comes to the Father because, or you only get to the Father by opposing what is woke. The only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ. And Islam openly rejects over 14 times in the Quran that Jesus is the Son of God. What this really comes down to at the end of the day is that The Bible is the truth, and the Quran copied it in so many ways. The Quran is a plagiarized version of the stories that were going on in the Middle East. Israel is very close to Mecca, where Muhammad was raised, and these stories were circulating around the Middle East for thousands of years. And we just have to look at this fact before we look at this next point of what Andrew Tate, his reasoning for following Islam. Nice to see everybody in the chat. I hope and pray that you guys have a good new year. It's nice to see you, Stephanie, PD, Matthew, Felicia. God bless you guys. Hey, Helen, nice to see you guys. So we have to point out the fact that Islam is completely plagiarized. I just have to point out a few things. I'll let this video play while I read a couple of these absolutely blatant copies of this. In the Quran, it says that Jesus created birds out of clay, and that when Jesus was at some point in his life, he took clay and created birds out of it. The Quran, again, was written in 600 AD. The Gospel of, let's see what it was. The Gospel of Thomas on Volume 1, page 144, written 80 to 185 AD, hundreds of years before the Quran, has a reference of Jesus creating birds from clay. So these are apocryphal sources going around at the time. In 1 Corinthians 2:9, we hear, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him." In a hadith written hundreds of years after the book of Corinthians, says, "Allah said, I have prepared for my righteous slaves as no eye has ever seen, nor ear has ever heard, nor human heart can ever think of." This list goes on and on and on and on. You could literally go for over an hour talking about the different plagiarisms in the Quran that have been ripped off from the Bible. I'll cover just a few more extremely important points. These are prophets that are mentioned in the Quran. Isaiah, Moses, Daniel, Ezekiel, Jesus, and their stories. We have the stories of these people. The story of Moses is in the Quran. Abraham is the patriarch of Islam. His whole story is in the Quran. The angel Gabriel is in the Quran. All these things that were going around, written for thousands of years before the Quran was ever written. So who are you going to trust? Muhammad, who came up with these new revelations with these stories that have been written for thousands of years in the Middle East, when we can go to the book of Isaiah and have the words actually written by Isaiah, or the book of Daniel or Ezekiel written by the actual people, or now Muhammad just has a new revelation with exact similar stories, but now Allah is the God and not the true God of the Bible and prophecies of his son Jesus. Go to the original source. Who are you going to trust? And while this is on the screen, we look at the Kaaba. This Kaaba here, as I made a video on my channel, on my main channel, Sling and Stone, this used to be a worship house for false gods, the main one being Habal. There was all these little false gods all around this thing, and people would travel to this false god worship center for hundreds of years and go and circle it and go and bow down to Habal, the false god, and worship false gods at this place in Mecca. And then Muhammad comes along and says, actually, Allah is God, and we'll just make the Kaaba about Allah. And so they just come and they continue circling and they continue bowing to a new false god, Allah. It's insane to see the different comparisons of all of this. And it's very important to point out. And a lot of these people here have strong faith. They stand up for what they believe in. And that's the most important aspect of this, because if they just see the comparisons that the Bible is the truth, Quran was, it couldn't be more obvious that it's plagiarized from the Bible and apocryphal sources, then all these people circling this false god worship center can actually start to follow the truth and accept Jesus Christ and the Bible and stand up for what's real. All right, so we will get now into more of this Andrew Tate video here. Let me just go to the chat and see what everybody's saying. There's tons of stories about Mary in the Quran that were clearly taken from apocryphal sources, about people casting lots for Mary. This was written years, hundreds of years before the Quran. It goes literally on and on and on and on. You know, the church needs to stand up for what's right, and we need to stand up for what's true and oppose what's wrong in the culture. And that is part of our job. But that is not a reason to base off of why you believe in a certain God. All right, so let's get to this next point that Andrew Tate, this is his reasoning for not following the Bible, the God of the Bible, but for following Islam.
Somebody who stands up for what he believes in and doesn't care if he's assaulted and attacked for it. Maybe that's why it was so appealing to me. And then I'd sit and I'd study it and I'd read and I'd realize how close it actually is to Christianity. We believe in so many of the same things. And
one sec, guys. Oh. It's not showing up on my end. Yeah. Well, that's not showing up in my chat for some reason, but there's someone in the chat. Let me see if I can make someone a mod real quick. Sorry, guys. Give me just 1 second as I see there's somebody causing trouble in the chat, upset with the truth of what's clearly what's true. Let me go to try to make a, how do I do this? Sorry, guys. Oh, wait. Hey, City to Sticks, I just made you a mod. If you could ban the person talking in the chat there. All right. Anyways, guys, sorry about that. I don't care if people disagree with me, but if someone's just going to comment nonsense over and over, then just ban them. All right. Back to the point here. So, all right, let's listen to this point that he makes again.
For somebody who stands up for what he believes in and doesn't care if he's assaulted and attacked for it. Maybe that's why it was so appealing to me. And then I'd sit and I'd study it and I'd read and I'd realize how close it actually is to Christianity. We believe in so many of the same things.
So isn't that funny what he just said? Let's listen one more time to that.
I don't want to who stands up for what he believes in and doesn't care if he's assaulted and attacked for it. Maybe that's why it was so appealing to me. And then I'd sit and I'd study it and I'd read and I'd realize how close it actually is to Christianity. We believe in so many of the same things. And
we believe in Christianity. We believe in so many of the same things. Why is that? Well, I just completely easily pointed the fact out that the Quran is plagiarized. So there's no coincidence that that we believe in so many of the same things. Even multiple end times prophecies about there's an antichrist. Well, guess what? The Islam has an antichrist as well. The Euphrates River drying up. Guess who also has that? Islam. These things are taken. That's why there's so many comparisons in Islam and Christianity, because Islam plagiarized the Bible. It could not be more obvious. Let's get to another point here made by Andrew Tate. And this is a thing that's said by a lot of people these days in many different areas of life. It's a very new age type of belief in God. Let's see what he has to say here. 1 minute, 1633.
correctly and properly are atheists because they need to learn the light.
Yeah, well, I'll join.
Yeah, I feel like if there's one God, let's imagine there's one sentence, and it's the most beautiful sentence that you can possibly think of that can be constructed with the most compendious and gorgeous language that can be put together. I feel like the different religions are perhaps different languages to say the same thing.
Yep.
And German sounds different to Russian, sounds different to English, but you can say it in different ways, but it all means the same thing.
And there you have it. That's what happens when you don't have a personal relationship with the true God or understand the truth, that there's only one way to heaven, and that's through Jesus Christ. And he said all roads lead to heaven. Imagine the most perfect sentence, and then all these different religions are trying to say this sentence, and that's how we all get to the same God. That's not the way this works. I'm sorry. That is just not the way this works. And that's why it's so important to really stand on this issue. John 14:6. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. Acts 4:12. Nor is there salvation in any other, for there is no name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. Which makes you just think, why was Muhammad so obsessed with saying that Jesus was a prophet, but he was not a son? Over and over, I think over 13 times, versus Allah doesn't need a son. Allah is not so weak that he needs a son. 1 John 2:22. God knew that this deception would come, where people would claim that God doesn't need a son. What does 1 John 2:22 say? Who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. You have to acknowledge that Jesus is the Son of God, or you're not going to heaven. You absolutely have to. What does the rest of the Bible tell us about these things to look at, especially in relation to false prophets? And Muhammad is the largest false prophet probably that ever lived. And in Matthew 7:15-16, we have a warning against false prophets. What's it say? Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. This is a huge evaluation guideline that God gives us in how to evaluate things that we look at and deal with in our life. You will know them by their fruits. What can we look at and see with the fruits of Muhammad? I've got a small list here pulled up. Well, the testimony of a woman is worth half of a man's or a quarter of a man's. So that's one thing that Muhammad has brought. Aisha was one of Muhammad's wives, and she was 9 years old. So the greatest prophet, according to Islam, who ever lived, married a 9-year-old. What else does Muhammad have to say? This is something that Muhammad wrote in the Quran, chapter 5, verse 33. The recompense of those who fight Allah and his messenger and seek to make corruption in the land is that they be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off from alternate sides, or that they be banished from the land. So this concept of like peaceful Islam, it just doesn't happen. The only reason that people who follow Islam are ever peaceful is because they have the morals of God written on their heart. Thank you, Zartan. Thank you for the super chat. That's why if any true Muslim was following the truth of what the Quran says, they would be cutting off people's hands and feet and crucifying them who disagreed with Allah or with Muhammad. That's the fruit of these people. That's the fruit of Islam. That's the fruit of Muhammad. Thank God that the morals of God are written on our hearts, and all these people circling this black cube, worshiping the old house of Habal and false gods, that they don't follow through with what the Quran actually has to say and the fruits of Muhammad. Again, I made the point earlier, it's very sad to see so many of these people, they so strongly believe in Islam, and maybe because they have these little bits of truth within the Quran, because it was stolen from the Bible. And they have such a strong faith, but they just need to learn the truth. And they're probably bullied in a lot of times into this faith. You know, there's a lot of these nations where these people, you have to follow Islam, and the Christians are sadly, the Muslims are following through with what Muhammad had to say of crucifying, cutting off hands and feet, and being very wicked towards Christians in the region. Thank you for the super chat, sister. Appreciate you. So sadly, a lot of people are just brainwashed, bullied into this belief system of following Islam. But again, it's a very strange thing that we're seeing lately in the world. You know, a lot of people listen to Andrew Tate. A lot of young men look up to Andrew Tate. A lot of young men look up to another person named Sneeko, and these are these anti-woke people. And of course, when you're anti-woke, you're anti-something that's being woke is ridiculous. So yeah, of course, what they say is appealing. A lot of stuff that Andrew Tate says is sometimes funny and sometimes appealing. But when it comes to the most important factor of it all, who is the right God to follow, Andrew Tate is 100% wrong, and he's using terrible reasoning for choosing why to follow God. Well, I follow God because the people who follow Islam, they're against the woke stuff. That's a terrible reason to follow God. That's a terrible reason to pick what God you follow. Look at what book has true prophecy, what book has the ancient history. The history of the Bible has the truth. This is what we need to look at. The Bible has the prophecy, the proven prophecy, Jesus, the true story of Jesus. And especially in this relation, it's not like Hindu or Christianity here where Tate's just like saying, oh, well, I believe in Hinduism because it just makes the most sense. It's based off the most clearly plagiarized religion of all time, which is probably why it's appealing, because when you plagiarize truth, then people are somehow drawn into this little bits of truth. Those were the only points that Andrew Tate really made in that interview about why he follows Islam, and they're terrible points. And again, I'll say the verse one more time. John 14:6, Jesus said to him, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So I feel for these people. I hope Andrew Tate will give his life to Jesus and seek the truth. I hope any of these people, Sneeko, and all these people circling the ancient false god worship center in Kaaba, will seek the truth of the Bible, because it's so clear to see that the Bible is the truth, and the Quran, Muhammad did a really bad job plagiarizing it. So that's my prayer, and that's really what it comes down to, guys. I hope and pray that you guys are well. I'm going to keep this on this subject. Not going to just do a hangout stream right now, but thanks for stopping in. Sorry I had to pause for a minute and make a mod. I saw somebody was not being well in the chat, but thank you guys for stopping in. Thank you, Sartan and Sister, for the super chats and everything. And yeah, I'm going to keep it just short and sweet for anybody who clicks this video to just get the information that's needed. The Bible's the truth. Jesus is the truth. He's the only way to heaven. That's my prayer for everyone out there. And I really hope these Muslims will wake up to this truth, because yeah, we could use more Christians, man. The world would be a much better place if everyone who followed Islam started following Christianity. And that's my prayer for them all and for everybody in the whole world. Thank you guys for all the nice comments. Thanks for stopping in this week. Coming up soon, we'll do a stream where we just come on and hang out for like a couple hours and get to talk and look up stuff. Thank you for being here. I'm going to post a main video tomorrow. God bless you guys and have a good night.